Welcome, Peter, to Security Point Break. I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Vouched.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm Peter Horadan, CEO of Vouched. We focus on identifying people remotely online so that people can access life's most essential services like banking or healthcare, where it's essential to verify identity. We make it as easy and as secure to do remotely as it is in person.
Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. I've been reading up on Vouched and I've been following your story for some time. And I'd love to cover some ground regarding your own solutions in terms of Vouched. But I'd love to also get a big picture view of identity. I can't help but notice there have been a lot of age verification headlines in the news today as of recent in terms of social media companies that are having more and more pressure in terms of age verification. Can you talk a little bit about age verification at a 10,000 foot level in terms of where we are at in terms of digital age verification?
You bet. The world of identity is about to undergo some pretty profound changes that are going to affect all of us, whether you're a security specialist or not. If you think about it, any workflow or any process really starts with identity, knowing who you're dealing with. And up until now, the only real tool we've had for that is your physical ID that sits in your wallet, that driver's license or passport that you pull out and show people to identify yourself. And that's led to a really interesting world where, when you try to identify someone in person, whether you're getting on an airplane, checking into a hotel room, or even just buying a beer where you need to verify your age, you just show your ID in person and you don't really think anything of it to do all those activities. But online, it's very rare to show an ID, and it happens really only in regulated contexts. And we've invented all of these proxies for verifying identity, such as sending 6 digits to your cell phone or showing you credit report information. Which of these addresses did you live at previously? Or even proof of personhood, things like, here's some pictures. Can you circle the fire hydrants? And if you've thought about it, if you did that in person, it would just seem absurd, right? Like imagine going to check into your hotel room and they say, "Oh, this is great. Here's 4 addresses that maybe you lived at. Could you tell me which address you lived at, and then I'll give you your hotel room key?" Or if they give you a pad with 9 pictures on it, and like, could you circle the fire hydrants, and then we'll give you a hotel room key. So these proxies that we do online are really, really poor substitutes for just going to a person's ID. And this is about to change. So one of the big changes coming to the world of identity is digital IDs. And so you might have seen this at the airport, at TSA, it says a digital driver's license accepted here. For most people that you haven't really seen this yet, but this is coming. So
Yeah.
California has already issued 2 million digital driver's licenses. New York State has issued 1 million of them. We think about 5% of adults in the United States already have a digital driver's license. And we
Yeah.
think within the next couple of years, we'll get to about 50%, which will be a tipping point.
Yeah.
Now, what's going to happen? How is that going to affect age verification? So what happens is when you have a digital ID, it lives on your phone. It lives in the secure enclave of your phone. So it's not a regular file. And in order to use it, you need to have a live biometric on your phone. So you either show your face or you put your thumbprint on the phone. And this is native in the browser. So it'll be very easy to use online. So the way it will work, you might be at a retail site, you might be at a social media site that needs to verify your age. What you can do is just in the browser, you can say, "Oh, could you share with me your digital ID?" Your phone will come online. It'll say, "Would you like to share your ID with this, whatever it is, social media site or whatever?" You then do your thumbprint, face print, whatever. And then there's a secure exchange that happens between the phone and the browser where there's a signed attestation that goes back to the site that is your ID. Now, the really interesting thing about this for age verification is you don't have to share your entire ID. Today, with a physical ID, when you share your physical ID, you give the whole thing over and the person can read all the information. With a digital ID, you can selectively choose what to share. You could share just your name. You could choose just the state you live in. You could send all the information. Or you could send just your birthday or a
Yeah.
property about your age, such as over 21, over 25.
I really appreciate the explanation. But when you think about some of the pressures that are being put on social media companies by different cities that are suing them because underage kids or I should say younger kids are accessing social media platforms. Where do you see this headed in terms of age verification? Are we all going to be needing to verify our age? Is Facebook, are some of these social platforms going to have to be implementing age checks to make sure that they're in compliance with rules and laws that we see in the pipeline?
You know, it's an interesting conflict because the state has a real interest in ensuring that young people don't see services that are not intended for young people. And
Mhm.
there's laws that apply to that in the physical world, right? There's establishments that young people can't go into for good reasons. However, grown-ups who want to use those services, they don't want to be identified, and they don't want to be identified for a good
Yeah,
reason. And
yeah,
you know, it's true even with social media. A person, you know, if we're not talking about services specifically for grown-ups, not everyone using a social media site wants to be identified. And there's a significant group of people
okay.
who say it would really quell debate or quell speech if everyone on social media must be identified. And you know, we see a lot of social media sites, there's a range. Some absolutely require a specific identity. LinkedIn is a great example of this. They really enforce you must be the identity that you are. And there's many other sites where you just have a username that has nothing to do with your regular name, so you're more or less
Mhm.
anonymous.
So I think what you were getting at is
Yeah.
zero knowledge proofs in terms of an ability for you to prove an aspect of who you are, for example, your age, without having to necessarily divulge where you live and what you do. Is that where we are going, or is that the most ideal solution that we can hope for?
Yeah, listen, this is part of why we're so excited about this because it's a solution that meets the needs of both groups. It meets the needs of the state because the state can now has a way to enforce that underage people aren't seeing things that are designed for people of a certain age. And it also, if you would like to stay private, it enables you to do that while proving your age. So it's really a perfect solution for both groups.
Mhm. Can I ask you a little bit more about the way that the Europe is different than the United States in terms of the United States having 50 different states or more in terms of regulations and rules and laws versus the way that the European digital identity wallet is being rolled out for the EU. Can you talk a little bit about the difference in that rollout and the challenges that we're going to see here in the United States?
So in the US, it's state by state and territory by territory. So 7 states are already issuing digital IDs in the United States. 30 have announced an intention to issue them, and the rest we don't know. And the rollout in the US is really each state is making up their own rules. Each state is producing their own app that runs on your phone. So if you live in Louisiana, you want a Louisiana digital ID, you're installing the Louisiana app on your phone.
Yeah.
And each state also has regulations about who can view those IDs. Now, many of us are looking at this and saying, well, you don't need a license to look at a physical ID. Why should I need a license to look at a digital ID? And it's slowing down the rollout of these things. It could be a big benefit, as we were just talking about. In the EU, the EU's handled it differently. So the EU has said that all 27 member nations will support digital ID by December of this year. They all support, as you mentioned, the UD format. There's other nations in Europe, such as the UK have made their announcement for their own digital ID coming also this year. So we're really starting to see this happen around the world.
So where, or have we already been seeing in terms of critical mass or a inflection point where digital IDs are going to be a reality that we're all going to have to deal with out of either necessity or convenience?
Yeah, so I listen. So first of all, there's an education that needs to happen because I think a lot of people, when they hear digital ID, they think, "Hey, I don't want to be tracked. I don't want a phone home back to the state every time I show my ID at a bar or something like that." And the good news is that the way that this is being implemented, there is no phone home. The W3 standard and other standards for digital IDs do not have a phone home included. I think that there's a lot of education to do to help consumers understand that digital IDs are going to be a terrific benefit to all of us for several reasons. Number one, it's a total defense against deepfakes. I mean, deepfake fraud is already approaching billions of dollars, where a very convincing version of a real person calls you and gets you to do something fraudulently, whether it's mail them against, whatever it is, there's all kinds of scams. But if you're worried about a deepfake, you could simply say, hey, I'd just like to see your ID, please. You send a simple request, and there's no way that a deepfake can produce a valid digital ID. First of all, it has to be created and signed by the state. Second of all, you have to have that live biometric. So it's a total defense against deepfakes. It solves this age verification problem that we were just talking about, where you can prove your age and stay anonymous at the same time. And there's many, many other benefits for it. Retail fraud, for example, when you think about how e-commerce works, retail fraud is a major issue for e-commerce vendors. If you're an e-commerce vendor and you're concerned at all about an order, just say, hey, could I see your ID, please? If you did that in the store, nobody thinks twice about it. They just pull out their ID, show it to you, you match the credit card, they're on their way. The same thing will now be possible digitally. So there's going to be a lot of benefits, and we have to help educate people, because today the rollout has been much slower than many of us would like to see, because we're trying to work through a number of these concerns.
Well, where in the food chain do we see the most value for MCPI in terms of fraud, in terms of privacy, in terms of audit trail, and who's most likely going to be adopting this?
So you're absolutely right that identity is key to preventing fraud in the enterprise. So when we talk to CISOs, we say, you don't know, or you may not know it, but your employees have already given their username and password to software agents, and they're already letting those software agents into your corporate systems, where those agents have access to your sensitive corporate information. You need to put this to a stop. So think about it. A salesperson might want to be a better salesperson. So they tell the AI, what should my next move be? And the AI says, well, let me into your sales management system and I can review your accounts and come up with that for you. They give the username and password. Now this third party is in your sales data. They have your prospect list. They have who you sell to. And even if it's a good AI vendor, that information could be subject to subpoena. Famously, OpenAI was subpoenaed by the New York Times, and all of our chats got hoovered up into that New York Times lawsuit that had nothing to do with any of us, but our chats were subject to discovery. So this is an intolerable situation. So my thought is, if you're a CISO, we need to ensure that employees understand that you should not be using any external agents on internal systems. And then you need to build in the identity systems to block that on the way in. And there's several ways of doing that. We have a product that does that. There are others, but every CISO needs to think about who's using agents now on our internal data.
I'm just wondering, when something goes wrong, where is the liability, or where could that liability lie?
So you're talking about age verification, not agents, just to be clear?
I think we're talking about both. I mean, when something goes sideways, where, and you take a look at the chain of custody, or you take a look at, like, what might have went wrong, where is that accountability? I mean, this technology is not foolproof. I mean, oath, right. Pass keys, mobile ID, wallets, verifiable credentials. I mean, they all have, they're all subject to some type of security accountability. I'm wondering, within that type of adoption, where is the accountability?
So what we're building with Know That AI is a community site where every agent has a self-assigned ID, cryptographic credential that they've created, and that they can verify that they own that identity. And then the community reports on the behavior of the agent. And so that really the accountability is with broadly the reputation that that agent's created through its own actions.
There seems to be a lot of standards out there right now, each competing with the MasterCards and the enterprises of the world. I'm wondering, where you see these types of standards fragmentations, what can we expect over the next couple of years in terms of how this shakes out?
That's a great point. There are a lot of standards, and the standards all have slightly different footprints. For example, payment companies or card networks have put out standards, but they only focus on how can an agent make a payment, when there's really a lot more to the entire life cycle. We have a lot of workflows that have a lot more steps than just a payment. For example, I'm an airline. can this agent see Peter's itinerary? Like, how do you express that? So the payment standards don't address that. With MCPI, we did try to go through the whole life cycle of the workflow that people do. But you're correct, actually, there are quite a lot of standards that have been proposed. And it seems like every other day, another company is making another announcement of this is how it should be done. There's going to be a shakeout, and I'm not sure exactly how it'll get resolved. We certainly need our standards bodies. I'm very excited by the work that the FIDO Alliance is doing here, the W3C is doing. NIST is also looking at this. So it's very good. We definitely need our standards bodies to come in and say, this is what we endorse. And then we all as an industry, within a few years, will settle on a standard approach. I like to say there's a new chapter in the CISO playbook. You know, if you're a CISO, there's a chapter for you need a firewall. You need a password rotation policy. You know, you need your security training. There's a well-established playbook if you're a CISO for how to do your job well. We've just added a new chapter called How to Deal with Agents, and the chapter is like entirely blank.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Well,
we're going to be filling it out together as an industry.
I want to thank you, Peter, so much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and learning, just getting a little bit of a glimpse in terms of Vouched and also how this marketplace is shaking out. So thank you very much for taking the time and talking with Security Point Break.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.